Malaysia's king is calling for a peaceful campaign period ahead of next month's 15th general election. UMNO, the country's largest political party, is seeking to consolidate its comeback after former leader Najib Razak was jailed for corruption. The snap poll will be held on the 19th of November. Nomination of candidates will be on the 5th of November, giving them 2 weeks to campaign. Caretaker Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob insists that 14-day campaign period will be sufficient for every political party to rally support. Some 21 million Malaysians are eligible to vote this year. The party or coalition that wins a simple majority of 112 seats in the lower house of parliament will form the next government. On polling day, the 3 states held by the ruling Barisan Nasional coalition, Perak, Perlis and Pahang, will hold elections to fill up seats in their state assemblies as well. But the states held by the opposition coalition, Pakatan Harapan, will only start balloting at the state level next year. For more, Afifa Arifin joins us live now from Ipoh, Perak. Good evening, Afifa. A hive of activity there in Ipoh where you are. The opposition Pakatan Harapan coalition, they're holding their convention right now. What can we expect them to discuss?
Well, now that the election dates have already been announced, I'm sure there's a lot of things that will be discussed by the Pakatan Harapan component parties, PKR, DAP, as well as Amanah, together with the 2 other small parties that they're working with in this upcoming general election, Muda, as well as UPCO. So among some of the things on the table is, of course, the candidates list, who will be representing Pakatan Harapan in this general election, as well as the seat distribution among the various parties, which is still being negotiated and still has not been agreed on, as well as the coalition's manifesto, which is set to be launched here tonight at the Pakatan Harapan convention. It's a massive convention here in Ipoh, Perak, the state that Pakatan Harapan has decided to use as its launch pad for this general election. So a lot of the members are here, supporters, party delegates, everyone is slowly making their way into the hall because the convention starts at 8 p.m. And this is actually one of the biggest coalition conventions that we've seen Pakatan Harapan held with regards to this election in recent months. Of course, back to the manifesto, we know that the Pakatan Harapan chairman Anwar Ibrahim has said that the manifesto will cover 5 key issues, and mainly covering issues of clean governance, as well as other things that they've done over the last 22 months when they were in power from 2018 general elections, which they have very proudly displayed on that panel behind me. So we will have to see what comes out of that manifesto when it's launched later at the convention.
Afifa, Pakatan Harapan are coming in on the back foot in many ways in this election. Tell us about the challenges that they face as they go into GE15.
Decided not to dissolve the 3 state assemblies that they control. So this means that the focus will be on securing as many parliamentary seats as they can in this general election. Of course, that magic number is 112 seats to form the simple majority in a total of 222 seats. Now, remember in the 2018 general election, Pakatan Harapan won massively. They made inroads, they laid siege on Barisan Nasional strongholds, and they also managed to kick out a lot of big names along the way. But as observers have pointed out, it was a very different coalition back then because it included Bersatu, a Malay-based party that is now with the Perikatan Nasional coalition. So that's going to be a big challenge for Pakatan Harapan, a multiracial coalition, because it needs to secure the Malay votes, which make up 60 to 70% of the electorate. And with many other Malay-based parties in the fray, it's really going to dilute votes. And observers are saying that it doesn't bode well for Pakatan Harapan in that case. Also, it's not going to be likely it's not going to be any more straight fights because there are 3 major coalitions contesting this time. And the other 2 coalitions, Barisan Nasional and Perikatan Nasional, well, they have the advantage of incumbency from being in the ruling government as well. So Pakatan Harapan will really need to revisit their strategies and have a strong manifesto to pull back that support base that they got back in 2018. At this point in time, though, it's for sure all of the political parties across the spectrum are really making their final preparations, launching the grassroots machineries at the division level to really start campaigning as soon as possible. They only have about 2 weeks left, so all negotiations have to be settled within the next 17 days, come nomination on 5th of November.
They're going to hit the ground running on this one. Afifa, thank you very much for that. Afifa Arifin there, reporting live in Ipoh.
Early voting will take place in Malaysia on November the 15th. There are growing concerns about the polls being held amid heavy rain and floods in the country. Melissa Goh tells us more.
It's the second time in Malaysia that a general election is held in November, so close to monsoon season, whereby flash floods are common across the country. But 222 parliamentary and 117 state seats that are now vacant need to be filled under the Constitution, the Election Commission said. Some 21 million are eligible to vote in GE15. Now, this includes more than 5.7 million first-time voters that were automatically registered and 1.3 million young voters aged 18 to 20. Now, GE15 is going to be a massive exercise involving more than 300,000 workers. Now, it's going to cost taxpayers more than 210 million US dollars with more than 9,000 polling centers nationwide. Now, schools that are traditionally used as voting centers will also have to serve as flood evacuation centers. Simulations and dry runs were held in schools the past weeks in case of flash floods. 94,000 police will be out in full force, aided by the Civil Defence Force with assets on standby. While political parties are rushing to finalise their candidate lists before nomination day on November 5th, coalition leaders are still locked in last-minute seat negotiations. The 15th general election is expected to see a fierce fight among UMNO-led Barisan Nasional, Perikatan Nasional that has a pact with Islamic Party PAS, and the opposition Pakatan Harapan. Now, although 14-day campaigning can only officially begin after nomination, political bigwigs are already on the ground canvassing votes.
You happy, I happy, okay lah. Tak tahu lah apa, terserah pada mereka lah untuk membuat pandangan mereka lah.
The recently tabled Budget 2023 that promises various goodies and handouts for lower and middle income groups, as well as small traders, he said, will be retabled and approved if BN is returned to power on November 19th. Melissa Goh, CNA, Kuala Lumpur.
Well, let's now speak with Alif Amsyah. He's in Kota Baru in Kelantan, a state currently held by the opposition's Perikatan Nasional coalition. Alif, how have residents in Kota Baru reacted to the news that the election takes place in less than a month?
Well, even as the countdown to polling day has begun, it's quite, the residents here are still quiet about the elections, not so much buzz about the elections so far, even as the important dates have been announced. Earlier on, I spoke to some of the residents here in Kota Baru. They say that they are pretty fatigued by the political situation here in Malaysia. They say that they don't want to think too much about it and take things as they come. Now, but for some other groups, especially the younger voters, they say that they're excited to be able to take part in the election process for the first time in their lives. Now, as we know, Kelantan is part of a conservative Malay heartland and has been ruled by the Malaysian Islamic Party PAS since the 1990s. And political observers expect a fierce contest between PAS and UMNO in this election this time round, especially for the Malay votes. Now, and in equal parts, the residents say that they are hungry for change for this, and this election could come as an opportunity for that. While some of the residents say that they prefer status quo and stability.
Alif, monsoons hit the East Coast especially hard. Is Kelantan ramping up its state of readiness to handle the expected floods?
Well, Jill, time is certainly ticking down with the state weather authorities saying that the monsoon will hit in November. Now, the Malaysian Civil Defence Force Kelantan has already started certain exercises such as boat handling and rescue management. The state is also ready to activate some 440 temporary relief centres, and that could accommodate up to 170,000 victims. But with the elections being held in November as well, that could mean new problems on the horizon. For instance, some of the designated polling stations would already have been used as a temporary relief centre by then. And therefore, the authorities will have to carefully plan on how to move the flood victims should that happen. The state, if you remember, was hit by a deadly flash flood in December last year, killing 2 people, and some 11,000 people were also displaced.
All right, Alif Amshah is in Kota Bharu reporting for us. Thank you.